Vadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunnivari Paschati Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are going to interrupt our normal class, at least partially interrupt it, to answer a question that was asked to me about the separation of Sita and Ram. And the devotee was saying, the question was, why did Ram banish Sita, knowing that she was chaste? And why did Ram put the citizens above Sita? Shouldn't a good husband put Sita above the citizens? That's a good question. And the question also is, how is it that Ram, the Supreme Lord, who's the control of everything, would allow himself to be put in a situation in which he suffers? That also doesn't make sense, because there's a lot of suffering in Ramayana. Now, best to give a little history or a reminder. Sita was born from the earth. She was found by Maharaj Janaka when he was plowing the field, and the field opened, and she was in a golden basket. And that's how we found her. He and his wife were looking for a child. I mean, go out shopping for a child, but they wanted a child. And this is how they found their child. So the understanding is she had actually come from Mother Bhumi out of the earth. And then, as you know, only Ram, because she's Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, only Ram could be her husband, and only Ram qualified by static. You're hearing static or ecstatic? Kamaniya says she's hearing static. It's not ecstatic? I hope you're the only one hearing static. Unless my computer's too close to the microphone, that may create static. We want ecstatic, not static. Is anyone else hearing static? So we know the story. Lord Ram was the only one strong enough to lift the bow. And in fact, he broke the bow when he was tying the bowstring. I hear it also. Oh no. You know, it could be. All right. This sounds different now, or it still sounds weird? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Tell me if this sounds weird. Every day is different. What about now? Because if the sound is not clear, it's an internet issue. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare. Or I have my every day is a new day. Perfect. This is better. This is so frustrating. All right, hold on. Nothing is different from yesterday. Is this okay? You said much better. What about now? Is it again? You have that same static sound? Again, again, again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Let me know. Because I just put the microphone back in. And the sound went away. Now there's no sound? Hare Krishna, Krishna. That's crazy. Oh my God. I'm being defeated. No sound at all. Okay. Ladley says no sound. Katie says sound is fine. Very like background buzz, but light. It's working perfect. Okay. So, Ecstatic sound now. Okay. Light hiss. Hare Krishna. So Ram marries Sita. We know the story. Sita's captured. Eventually, now Sita returns, and the heartbreaking scene is Ram said, I can't accept you because you've been away with another man. He said, I will, if you can't accept me, I will kill myself. I will go in the fire and it will prove my chastity. She proves her chastity. He comes back to the kingdom. He goes out spying to hear what people are saying about him, because unlike some leaders, Lord Ram actually cared what people were thinking about him and what people were saying. And he heard one man whose wife was gone for a night tell her, I'm not going to accept you back because you've been gone for a night, and I'm not going to be like a henpecked husband like Lord Ram, who accepted Sita back. And when he heard that, he told Sita, you have to go. Sita goes. She gives birth to 2 boys in his absence. When the boys are older, again, finally they're reunited, and then Ram says, well, we should all be together, but in order to be together, you have to go through the fire and prove yourself again. She says, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to embarrass myself. And she walked, the earth opened up, she walked into the earth. She came from the earth, she went back to the earth. And then Ram was left with the kids and without Sita. And there's other stories like that. When Ram did the Rajasuya sacrifice, you're supposed to have your wife there, and he had a golden deity of Sita. He wouldn't do it alone. He wouldn't take another wife. So anyway, so the question, we have a document, and Kamaniya, can you put that document up? The document is called The Ecstasy of Separation. So I'm just going to read some things I've collected that will answer this question that I thought were important for us or interesting for us. So the first thing. Question: why did Rama listen to the complaints of the man who was banishing his wife? According to Raja Dharma, the dharma of a king, he must listen to the complaints of his citizens. That's his dharma. So, right in the beginning, first paragraph. The ecstasy of separation. Did I send you that document yesterday? I think I sent you 2 documents. This is called the ecstasy of separation. So, first point, king has a dharma. It's called Raja Dharma. He has a dharma to perform. And this is part of his dharma. He needs to be aware of the opinion of the citizens, and because they'll give feedback as to what is wrong, what should be improved, and so forth. So that's what he's doing. He goes out listening. Yes. So this is what we're reading from. Now it's up and you can read it. Well, there's 2 quotes. I'll read the first quote. But according to Raja Dharma, he must listen to the complaints of the citizens. He sacrifices his own and Sita's happiness for the happiness of his own citizens. But these are pastimes of separation in which the heart breaks to get the wealth of love. So, first point, as a duty of a king, he has to sacrifice his own personal interests, and that's why he sacrificed Sita. So Sita is more dear to him than anything, but he's going to sacrifice Sita for the welfare of the people. That's his duty. So that's, so it looks like he's doing something bad, not showing affection or care or so forth for his wife, but actually he's sacrificing his personal pleasure for the welfare of the people. Second point, but these are pastimes of separation in which the heart breaks to get the wealth of love. So love comes higher in separation. The more there's separation, the more there's love. So when Lord Ram creates these separation leelas, what's actually happening, it's increasing the love. And so let's read the next quote. Well, it's part of this quote. Before I answer any questions, let's just read this and maybe it will answer your questions. Krishna Karshani is saying, why did Ram leave her alone? Because these are leelas. We can't exactly look at them from the way you would look at an ordinary husband. He had purpose for these leelas. So many purposes were served, and then she had to be left alone that way to serve all his purposes. So this is from purport to the 5th canto, 19th chapter, text 5. And it's up here. It's under what I just read. A Vaishnava is always firmly situated in transcendental bliss because of engagement in devotional service. Although he may appear to suffer material pains, his position is called transcendental bliss in separation. The emotions a lover and beloved feel when separated from one another are actually very blissful, although apparently painful. Therefore, the separation of Lord Ram from Sita Devi, as well as the consequent tribulation they suffered, is but another display of transcendental bliss. That is the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So now we're challenged, now we're challenged to not see this Leela materially, because when we see it materially, then we think, oh, Ram is banishing Sita, they're separated, they're suffering. Ram is in anxiety, he has to kill millions of soldiers to get Sita back, and then when he finally gets her back, he can't take her back, and then he has to banish her, and it just seems all very unhappy and depressing even. So we have to see through the eyes of Shastra and through the eyes of the Acharya. And what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying here, I find it's been very difficult for devotees, in general, to understand, because unless you can experience this, it's very difficult to understand this, because for us, separation is not a happy time. Some dear one leaves us, some dear one visits us and then leaves, some dear one leaves their body. It's very unhappy for us. We don't like it. We want to be with them. So when we see that in Krishna Leela, then we naturally think, based on our experience, this must be really miserable. So I want to read something again, and then we can discuss a little more. Although he may appear to suffer material pains, his position is called transcendental bliss in separation. He's not suffering material pains. It appears, so the key word here Prabhupada is using, although it appears to us, materially conditioned souls, because we would suffer that way. But Prabhupada says it's not suffering, it's transcendental bliss and separation. So there's an ecstasy called viraha, when the devotee is actually more ecstatic in separation. Materially, that won't make sense. So we have to try to make it sense spiritually. The idea being that Krishna is absolute, and in separation you think of him more, and by thinking of him, you're never separated from him, you're with him. So really, there is no separation. It appears to be separation. It's actually more intense in so-called separation, because the meditation is more intense. And the feelings of separation create that intensity. And from that intensity, it produces ecstasy in love of Krishna, or bhava. So that intense separation is actually stirring up the ocean of rasa, and the devotee in separation is feeling more blissful. That's how we understand it. Separation is increasing the meditation, it's increasing the emotion. Everything in relation to Krishna is blissful, everything in relation to Krishna is ecstatic. So the separation is actually making it more ecstatic. And there's nothing in relation to Krishna that's not ecstatic. So there actually, it's impossible philosophically and in terms of rasa, it's impossible for there to be pain which is not blissful in spiritual life. Pain which is not blissful is something we experience, but that's impossible to experience spiritually. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti goes on to say, the emotions a lover and beloved feel when separated from one another are actually very blissful, although apparently painful, because that's the nature of rasa, it's blissful. Therefore, the separation of Lord Ramchandra and Sita Dev, as well as the consequent tribulation they suffered, so-called tribulation, is but another display of transcendental bliss. So this is something we have to try to get our heads around, that in the transcendental realm, separation increases the ecstasy. It increases the feelings of love. And obviously, if the feelings of love for Krishna increase, the ecstasy will increase. Okay, so let's read the next one. This is from the 9th canto, 11th chapter, text 17. So Kamini, if you can put that up, it's the next quote, 9, 11, 17. We're just now waiting. I think it's better I wait till it comes up before I read it, because that way you can read along, and I think you get more out of it, don't you, when you read along? Yes? And so Marco's asking, is there separation in the spiritual world? If yes, yeah, there is. I mean, it or the illusion of separation, because that separation increases ecstasy. There's even demons there. They're not actually there, but they appear and disappear, and there's rumors of demons, and there's Yoga Maya can do all these things because separation actually helps. So yes, separation is a necessary ingredient for rasa. So, whatever helps the rasa, Krishna will do that. Yeah, Satyarupa says, our trying to understand separation is like licking the bottle of the honey. So Krishna Karshani says, well, I thought Ram was setting a good example. Well, he was. Prabhupada said, he set another example. When you get married, you're going to have trouble. So he had trouble. So that's the example he set. That's one of the examples he set. But he also set the example that he went and saved his wife. So playing like an ordinary man means he's not going to control the situation from a distance. He's not going to give a heart attack to Ravana. He's not going to order all the soldiers to die, but he's playing the part of an ordinary person. And so if he's going to set the example, then he has to work within the limitations of ordinary people. So that's what he was doing. So he did set the example of a perfect husband. He never accepted another wife. He found his wife. He took her back. Yes, you have to understand what he's doing in the entire context of his Leela and what he's trying to teach. Okay, so here, this is from Bhagavatam 9, 11, 17. Lord Ramachandra's grief at the news of Sita Devi's entering the earth is not to be considered material. So, this is how Sita Devi died. She entered the earth, as we said. In the spiritual world also, there are feelings of separation. And that answers your question, Marco. But such feelings are considered spiritual bliss. Now, understand something about the spiritual world. sometimes you'll see things that appear to be material, like day and night, or time. It's time to go out and herd the cows. And then we understand, but there's no time there. There's no day or night. Everything is self-effulgent. And there shouldn't be any separation, and there shouldn't be any demons, and there shouldn't be any trouble. Anything that goes on in Leela is only going on to increase affection between Krishna and his devotees. So if they need day and night, if they need rumors of demons, if they need separation, it's said, I read, and I don't know the source of this, that periodically in the spiritual world, Krishna leaves Vrindavan, goes to Mathura, kills Kamsa, and then comes back the same day. And that Kamsa is manifest by Yoga Maya, and then he kills this Kamsa, and that Kamsa again manifests later, and he does it again. So why would he do that? It's Leela. And so whatever's going on in that realm, it's only going on to enhance relationships. So whatever's necessary to enhance relationships, it will happen. Even if it looks like something material, or it appears to be something that's going on in this Leela here, it's only going on there because Yogamaya and Vrindadevi and Krishna decide this will be the best thing for rasa, for churning the ocean of love. So that's how we understand it. That's the lens we look at it through. So Prabhupada says here, in the spiritual world there are also there are feelings of separation, but such feelings are considered spiritual bliss. Grief and separation exist even in the absolute, but such feelings of separation in the spiritual world are transcendently blissful. That's the point again. Such feelings are a sign of tasya prema vashyatva swabhava, being under the influence of Ladini Shakti and being controlled by love. In the material world, such feelings of separation are only a perverted reflection. So we're trying to understand the absolute through a perverted reflection, and it doesn't work. So we have to understand, as Prabhupada says here, the spiritual world is under the influence of Ladini Shakti. Ladini Shakti, Radharani's personification of Ladini Shakti. Ladini Shakti is Krishna's ecstatic potency, internal potency of bliss, of happiness. So Ladini Shakti pervades everything in the spiritual world. So you don't have to worry if you go to the spiritual world that you might be unhappy, or you won't like the food, or the weather's not good, or you won't like your husband or wife or your children, or the house they give you, the clothes you have to wear, the service you have to wear, all this like crazy mundane thinking that we could possibly have in trying to understand what life in the spiritual world would be like. It's not under the three modes of nature. It's only because of the three modes of nature that there's any suffering or misery, or that there's anything temporary. So there, the atmosphere is entirely Ladini. So in that Ladini atmosphere, there can't be any unhappiness. And if there is any so-called misery, distress, suffering, separation, unhappiness, it's only a part of the Ladini Shakti, which is being enacted to increase rasa, or taste, or increase ecstasy, increase relationship. That's how we understand it. But Prabhupada said something which is hard for us to understand. When he was leaving once and everyone was feeling separation, he said, separation is better. We will be closer in separation. So that's something to meditate on, because that's hard for us, because we don't always feel that way. Or maybe some of you have never felt that way. But Prabhupada said, separation is better. When I was leaving Mayapur, I told the devotees, separation is better, and I looked at their face, and they looked at me like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? But that's what Prabhupada said, and that is generally our response, because we don't have that experience. We don't understand how separation is better. But over time and through experience, through serving and connecting with devotees and connecting with our spiritual masters, in service through separation, we'll start to understand that I'm actually with them. They're guiding me. Prabhupada is with us, he's here, he's guiding us. You'll gradually realize all these things. And then you'll understand that statement that separation is sweeter, because you'll actually feel closer. Because just being close physically, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be close spiritually. And so when we're close physically, obviously we're feeling something, being in the presence of the one we love. But Prabhupada's saying it's actually closer in separation. So just meditate on that. Put that, somewhere in there, that separation is actually closer. Separation is more intense. Or as Prabhupada said, separation is actually better. Just anyway, get that in there. Maybe you don't understand it, but just put it in there somewhere in your consciousness that separation is better. And then you could meditate on that and try to realize that through service. And the last thing Prabhupada says, which is worth repeating, is in the material world, such feelings of separation are only a perverted reflection. So what we're feeling as separation here is a lot of grief, a lot of unhappiness. But that's a reflection, perverted reflection. So because it's a perverted reflection, we can't compare it to spiritual separation. And when we try to compare it to spiritual separation, that's when we misunderstand. Okay, the last thing. I'm not sure the source of this. I think this was a conversation or a lecture. And I have to explain it. It's not so clear. For the sacrifice, the Rajasuya sacrifice, where the king sends out a challenge horse. And then if a king somewhere in the world doesn't accept, there will be an army traveling with the challenge horse, and he must defeat the army. Otherwise, if he loses, or if he chooses not to fight, he's accepting the supremacy of that king. And those kings were ruling the whole world. For the sacrifice, they asked Rama to marry, because the yajna must be done with a wife. But he refused, thus showing his fidelity to Sita. So this is when Sita, as far as I know, this is when Sita was banished. So he traveled with a golden murti. Sita heard this, and she realized he'd never banished me from his heart, and that is my happiness in knowing this. So here's an example of separation that's not separation, because when that person is in your heart, you're not separated. And that's why Prabhupada said separation is stronger, because you think more of the person when you're separated. Sometimes when the person is in close proximity, you may take it for granted, or you don't think of them that much. But when you're separated from them, you think of them more. I had the opportunity to live in Los Angeles when Prabhupada was there for 3 months. Every day he gave Bhagavatam class for 3 months. And I could see that we were starting to get used to it, take it for granted, like this is normal. And that the devotees who weren't in Los Angeles were thinking or feeling separation from Prabhupada and thinking of him more than we were, because that's the nature of separation. It makes you think of the object you're separated from. So that's something to consider. So now in this story, Sita heard that he traveled with a golden murti. He wouldn't remarry. And so she understood that I am in his heart, so I'm very close to him. There's really no separation, because he's thinking of me, I'm thinking of him, and therefore we're together on the transcendental platform. So on the transcendental platform, there's no difference between thinking of Krishna and Krishna. Just like we say there's no difference between chanting Krishna's name and Krishna, so there's no difference between thinking of him, his form, or his qualities, or his lila. It's the same. Hare Krishna. Right? Got that? Get that in your head, right? When Krishna's absolute, so if you think of Krishna, Krishna's there in your thinking. Krishna's there in a murti. You can create a murti made out of the element of mind, because mind is a material element. So Deity can be of marble, it can be of earth, it can be of wood, it can be of stone, it can be of mind. It's a subtle material element. Isn't that interesting? So you can create a deity in your mind of Krishna. You think of Krishna, and that is Krishna. Krishna's there. So then how can there ever be separation? And so on the transcendental platform, although a devotee feels separation, it's apparent separation, but there's never separation because Krishna is always present in thinking. And in the Krishna book, Prabhupada said Krishna never leaves Vrindavan because one way he doesn't leave is the residents are always thinking of him. So they're in his mind. That's nice. So let's read on. This is why he could not reciprocate with the rishis who wanted amorous Leela until he came as Krishna. When Ramchandra, you probably know this, in Dandakaranya where he was, the rishis were there, and he met these rishis, and when the rishis saw him, they became attracted conjugally, to have a conjugal relationship with him. You might think, well, wait a minute, were they gay? No, it has nothing to do with that. This is beyond the body. It aroused a desire for conjugal ras. And Lord Ramachandra said, you will come as gopis, I will bless you. But in this life, he couldn't reciprocate with them because he only had one wife, and he was playing this part of a man, ideal husband. So he wouldn't have rasa with any other woman, although they desired it. Interesting point, isn't it? This is why he could not reciprocate with the rishis who wanted amorous Leela until he came as Krishna. Also, the Yagyasitas that were gold became animated and wanted amorous relationship. And also he said, not in this Leela, but when I come as Krishna, I will fulfill your desire. So he had these Yagyasitas, which were expansions. But Ekapatni Vrata, he made the vow, I will only have one wife. And obviously this was very satisfying to Sita. And so, even though it seems a tragedy, and eventually Sita went back in the earth, left this world, in the presence of Ram, in the presence of her son, in the presence of her relatives, in the presence of so many people. What a scene. Hare Krishna. How painful that is. But actually it was blissful. So that's what we have to understand. So does anyone have any questions on this? Because I just wasn't planning to give the whole class on this topic. Because it was asked and because of Ram Navami, I thought, well, let's continue and churn the ocean of Ram Navami. And this is an important topic to discuss because this is one of the highest topics in Vaishnava theology, the ecstasy of separation, or as it said, it's like a hot, sweet chutney. The ecstasy of separation is so sweet, you can't resist it, but it's so hot, it's painful. But that pain is actually sweet. So there's I'll tell you a story. This is funny. This will help. This will help. Long ago, well, not so long ago, 20, 30 years ago, the devotees performed Ramayan off-Broadway in New York. And the devotees were professional actors and actresses, and it was really good. And the devotee who played Ravana, he told me that after the performance, one man came and congratulated him. He said, I want to congratulate you. You made me cry. So that's kind of funny. You'd say, like, why would you be congratulated for making someone cry? If I get upset at you coming in and I start chastising you to the point you cry, it's not pleasurable. But within the drama or the Leela, we go to dramas, we go to movies, and we actually want to cry. We like it when we see scenes that make us cry. Isn't it? Thank you for that. You're such a good actor. You made me cry. Interesting, isn't it? So, if Lord Ramchandra's Leela makes you cry, then that crying is actually giving you some transcendental pleasure. And that was his purpose. And so you could cry a little bit. Because otherwise we're going to cry when somebody steals our pakoras, or when prasadam's late, or when someone writes something nasty about us on the internet. So better we learn how to cry this way. So if you hear this Leela and it makes you cry, at least cry in ecstasy. Don't cry under the mode of ignorance. And that crying, as we said yesterday, that's good. That's what Lord Rama and his Leela is trying to bring that out of us. And that it's a kind of rasa. And that crying is a kind of rasa that brings us closer to Krishna. Okay. Again, we have this question about Lord Ram's Dharma. That Krishna Priya is asking. I have to read the names that are Kamini was asking when I read the comments or questions. It's hard to find them because I'm saying I'm reading Krishna Priya's question and it comes up as Krishna Priya. I can't even pronounce this. Namraj Oja. That's Krishna Priya. And she's asking the same question Krishna Karshani is asking. What about Ram's Dharma as a husband to protect Sita? And he let her go away. Everything, so we have to understand in the context, everything he did was dharmic. He let her go away because that was the right thing according to a king's dharma, as we read. And eventually he takes her back. So that answers your question. He did the right thing, but then eventually he decided, no, the right thing now will be to take her back. And then, as I said, he said, but you'll have to go in the fire to prove your chastity before you come back. And she said, I'm not going to do that. This is demeaning to me. I'd rather leave. And so part of this drama of separation is to draw us into the Leela. So we have to we have to see the Dharma as the king, as why he's doing that. And we have to see, as I said, the limitations he's working under because he's taking the part of a normal man. But we also have to see that this separation is drawing us into the Leela and drawing our sentiments and making us cry, which is better than crying that you missed your favorite television show because you came home late. Right? So he wants you, Lord Ram wants you to cry in separation. And if we're not advanced enough to be feeling separation, but by reading this Leela, we feel a little, it implants a little bit of that sentiment, and that's good, that's purifying. Right? So if you can feel a little separation, that's good. That's why he's doing it. So that it'll just like pull our mind in, it'll pull our heart in. Wow, why is this happening? This is so bad. Poor Sita. And you're feeling all this, but it's all in relation to Leela. So then it becomes a transcendental emotion of some sort, not maybe complete and pure, but some sort of transcendental emotion. So that's good. I always, when we were in Mayapur, I was singing, without you, Lord, a moment feels like a million years, and tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. So we'd sing that I've sung that in many places. And then right after that, I jokingly sing, what did I sing? Like, without my pizza and ice cream, a moment feels like a million years or more. And tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, feeling an absence of the pizza. Something like, I made up some joke, and I said, that's the problem in our conditioned state. We are feeling separation, it's just we're feeling separation from sense gratification. So if you can feel, enter a little bit into this mood of separation, transcendental separation, which awakens, which makes you more attached to Krishna and awakens some emotion for Krishna, that's fantastic. And that's what Lord Rama is doing in this Leela. And that's why when you read the Leela, you feel these emotions. Oh, this is so bad. This is so horrible. But he wants you to feel that way. Because that feeling, there's a kind of sweetness in suffering. That's why the man said, "Thank you, you made me cry." There's a sweetness in that. There's a rasa in that. Right? And you ever go to a sad movie and say, that movie was so sad. It was such a good movie. And I cried so much during the movie. And it's like, why would you want to go somewhere and cry? It doesn't make any sense. There's a rasa in crying. There's a rasa in depression. It gives you, that was such a good movie. I cried through the whole thing. I want to see it again. Why do you want to go see something depressing? There's a rasa there. Right? So there's a rasa in the suffering that Lord Ramchandra is going through. There's some kind of emotion, taste, feeling, and that draws us into the Leela. And then we read it. Oh no, Sita's banished. This is so horrible. It's drawing us into the Leela. What's going to happen next? Is he going to save her? Dun, 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 dun. Stay tuned next week for the adventures of Lord Ram and see if he can capture Sita. Then he goes, and it's difficult. And they've got to cut down the walls that surround Lanka, and millions of soldiers to fight, and they have advanced weapons, and they're throwing trees and stones, and big clash. What's going to happen? Who's going to win? This is horrible. It's not fair. And then finally, there's Ram and Sita, and there's Ram and Ravana, and finally Ravana kills Ram kills Ravana, and it's like, okay, it's over. And then Sita shows up, and then he drops the bomb, which nobody expected. I'm sorry, I can't take you back with me. You've been at the home of another man. It's like, after all that, and how do you feel? You're like, Ram, how could you do that? And you feel so sad for Sita, and you cry. And then Sita goes to the fire and she comes out, and then you're happy. So you're experiencing all these emotions in relation to Leela. What more could you ask for? So whatever separation, sadness, and like that, it's just so that we can enter in an emotional way into this Leela. Otherwise, we're just going to go to the movies and cry over some so-called love affair, which is only going to arouse our desire to have a love affair. And if you're not having a good affair with your husband, it's just going to arouse the desire to have it with some other guy or girl, isn't it? So, and this love affair will purify you of your desire to love anybody, to lust after anyone. It'll awaken your love and hopefully give you more potency to be chaste to your husband or wife. That's how we have to see it. So I hope that answers those questions. But it's true. Look at Hollywood, look at Bollywood. It's all about love stories. So then here, you don't think Lord Ram knows that? You don't think he knows? As I said, I think yesterday, you don't think he knows that Bollywood and Hollywood is going to be something big in the future when there's cameras and films? And so this is the real original love affair, Lakshmi, Narayana, Radha, and Krishna, that we're supposed to be absorbed in. Otherwise, people waste their minds, their hearts, in reading novels about fictional love affairs and going to movies about fictional love affairs. What a waste. And all it does is excite our own desire to have our own love affairs. We're hearing about Radha and Krishna excites our desire to support their love, to serve their love, and give up our lust. So, ladies and gentlemen, which one should we hear? You know the answer. Hare Krishna. So, Katie has a question, a statement. I think when there is separation, we also focus more on the positives of the other person and the happy moments we spent together. Sounds like a song. We spent with a person instead of focusing on the bad moments and the daily challenges and obstacles. Yes, that is true. But there's a problem, Katie. sometimes we're focusing on someone who we have separated from because separation was the right thing to do. And we think, oh, but we had so many good times. Yeah, that person was beating you up every week. But then you think of the good times. And you think, oh, but it was so nice. So, yeah. So I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that sometimes it works against you because the person was actually bad. And you should think about the bad. Because sometimes we foolishly want to reunite with someone who's abusive by thinking of all the good times we had. And it's also a trap for a sannyasi who gives up his family to think of the good times they had. Because once Prabhupada said, you understand what I'm saying? I'm taking your idea to a whole other level. I understand what you're saying and I appreciate it. I'm taking this to another level because it's a good topic of discussion. That sometimes we give up something which is bad for us, but then we remember the good parts of it, and the good parts create an attachment for it. But we should be thinking of the bad parts because we want to be detached. So at the initiation ceremony of Satsvarup Maharaj and Ridananda Maharaj in 1972, Prabhupada said something interesting, and this is, I think, relevant even if we're not sannyasis. He said, now that you're taking sannyas, it doesn't mean you won't be attracted to women and money, because the idea of sannyas is you're giving up family life if you had family life, or you're giving up, if you never had family life, you're giving up the prospect you will never get married. When a devotee was married and they took sannyas, Prabhupada gave them the name Goswami, Satsarup Das Goswami, Hridayananda Das Goswami. When they weren't married, he gave the name Swami. And it seems that Prabhupada felt that those who were giving up the family were greater renunciates than those who never had a family. And then, so Prabhupada said, now that you're taking sannyas, it doesn't mean there won't be attraction for these things. It means that you cannot act on this attraction. Whereas if I'm a brahmachari or I'm a grihasta, I may be attracted to women and money, so I regulate that through marriage. I can have a home, I can earn money, I can enjoy within some restrictive environment. But when I'm a sannyasi, it's over, it's finished, it's cut off. It's not going to be any connection, at least not any intimate connection with women, and there's not going to be any effort to expand my life materially, acquisition of wealth and so forth. And then Prabhupada said something interesting, which relates to what we're talking about here. He said, so when you're preaching and you go to someone's home and they have a nice home and a nice wife and nice children, do not think, I also had a nice home. I also had a nice wife. I also had nice children, but I gave them up. In other words, don't think in a way that you start appreciating what you have, thinking positively about the things that you gave up. Because as we've said many times, positively thinking about something is what causes attachment. So he's saying, don't think positively about those things. Oh, I had a nice wife. She was so sweet. She's such a good cook. If you're a sannyasi and you think like that, it's not good. Oh, I have this business idea. I could make so much money, etc., etc. Now I'm a sannyasi. What to do? I'd like to do it. No, you've renounced that. You've cut it off. So sometimes there are some things and some people and situations, it's actually good to focus on the negative. Generally, we don't advise that, but there are some things where it's good to remember the negative, because if we remember the positive, it may engage us in something or draw us back into something which we actually want to give up. So if you're giving up something, it's always helpful to understand why you gave it up. What was frustrating you? What was causing you unhappiness that made you give it up in the first place? That's helpful, right? I think we've all had experience like that, of giving up something and then thinking positively about what we've given up. And it's hard to remain aloof from it if we have positive thoughts about it, because dayato vishayam punsam, what you think about, what you meditate on in a positive way, you become attached to. So it's just important to understand this principle. if you actually give up something, it's better to remain negative towards it, or at least neutral. And if you remain positive, like Prabhupada, he was positive in one sense about his wife, because he acknowledged that she was a good wife, but he didn't acknowledge it in the form that I'm missing her or I want her back. He just acknowledged, if you don't want to be negative, okay, I acknowledge she was good, but the relationship and the family life was not so happy. It didn't work out so well. So in that sense, if you don't want to be negative, at least you can acknowledge, okay, it was good, it just didn't work out. And it won't work out. And sometimes we have to look at some services that we want to do, but we're not good at doing in the same way. This is not my skill set. I won't be successful in this area. So that's an important point. Okay. So Paran Ananda says, I think in this world too much separation between husband and wife can make divorce. Yeah, it's true. A lot of times husbands and wives don't spend enough time together, and they start just drifting apart. That is very true. But sometimes if they spend too much time together, they drive one another crazy, which I think is happening to some people right now. They're together at home with their wife or husband, and they're not used to that. They're used to being gone all day. That's, some devotees are having a hard time. Or some people, I don't know about devotees. We did a workshop on marriage last night, and one devotee was saying, yeah, it's, we're together all day now, and it's a different environment, different dynamic. So Kamini says it's pretty mind-blowing. We can create a deity in our mind. If you go on the folio and you Google diamond throne, Prabhupada talks about how you can create a diamond throne in your heart, and you can bring Krishna on that throne, and then you can offer Krishna incense and light and flowers. You can actually do arti with that deity in your mind on that throne. Actually, let me see if I can find that quote, because it's a beautiful quote. And if I can find it, it would be really nice to read it. I found it. Okay. This is a lecture. This is on the first canto, 13th chapter, text 10. This is on June 1st, 1974. If you want to follow, June 1st, 1974, Geneva lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, 113.10. You can make a note of this. At least can somebody write this down? June 1, 1974 lecture. That you can go find this later if you want. I'll start reading from the top of the paragraph. Therefore, every one of you should become pure devotee, first-class devotee, first-class devotee. In this age, it has been made very simple. Simply keep yourself cleansed, not to indulge in the four principles, prohibition, and chant Hare Krishna. Then you will be all first-class devotees. And wherever you will go, you will be able to purify there, wherever you go, wherever you speak, wherever you'll sit. So keep this spiritual strength intact. Tirtha, tirti bhutaha, tirti korvanti tirtani swantastena. That means, it's a prayer. I forget who was praying to who. Maybe the sages were praying to Sita, and said, wherever you go is a place of pilgrimage. Wherever you sit, you purify that place. Wherever you go, so The Hare Krishna mantra chanting means keeping Krishna always within your heart. It is not expensive at all. You haven't got to make a very exalted throne for Krishna. You can imagine that, quote, "In my heart, I have placed now a very diamond throne, and Krishna is sitting." That is accepted. It is. Actually, it becomes. Probably means it actually happens. Even within the mind, you think, quote, "I have kept one diamond throne, very costly throne, because Krishna is coming. He will sit down there." That is not false. That is a fact. So you create such situation within your heart. Quote, "Now Krishna has seated. Let me wash his feet with Ganges water, Jamuna water. Now I change his dress to first-class costly garments. Then I decorate with ornaments. Then I give him for eating." You can simply think of this. This is meditation. Swanta stena gadabritya bata. It is so nice thing. Anywhere you can sit down and think that Krishna is sitting in your heart, you are receiving in so nice way. They are not false. They are also fact. It is so easy. Hare Krishna. You like that, huh? So basically, Prabhupada's saying you can do puja to this form of Krishna in your mind, and all the puja you can do in your mind. And we know the story, famous story of the Brahmin who did puja in his mind, and he cooked sweet rice, and he checked to see if it was cool, and he touched it with his finger, and his finger actually burnt in meditation. It was quite interesting. I don't know if anyone has done any research in the secular world about this, how you can go into meditation, visualize something, and experience it on a physical level. But what I do know, and I've talked about this before, and you may know this, that you can rehearse, you can practice in your mind something that you would normally practice physically. You can go over in your mind, and you actually get the same benefit by thinking about it. Okay, I'm supposed to act this way, hit the ball this way, this is how my teacher taught me, and I'm going through it in my mind. And it actually has the same effect. Now, what psychologists say, they say the mind does not distinguish between what's true and what isn't true. So by thinking of something in your mind, which is completely false, you can have all kinds of fears and anxieties, isn't it? And your whole body then reflects that. So you can have ecstasies. You're meditating on Krishna. Krishna's there. In your mind, it becomes a reality. Krishna is real in your mind at that point because he's not material. So you're bringing him in your thoughts. You're making a deity of mind. Beautiful. Why not? We can all meditate. And when you have deities and you're not able to do the puja, then this is how you do it. So Satyarupa is asking about this separation and pain they were associating with Krishna, or thinking of Krishna. Why were they in pain? That pain is what seems to be pain for us. But for them it was ecstasy. So it's not really pain. It's maybe a show, but it's an impetus, uripan, for more ecstasy, the separation. So it appears to be pain because, oh, Krishna's God. Now I'm feeling he's God. And that feeling, that imagination that he's God, creates more intense meditation on Krishna, who is never God because he's there in your mind. It's something you'll have to meditate on, how that works, or experience someday. Katie says, chastisement from Guru is a very high form of love. Yes, it is. It's a high form of care. Our friend Marco says, it's inconceivable how Srimati Radharani, she who is the Ladini Shakti or Krishna's potency, pleasure potency, who provides for all transcendental feelings, including separation, can experience this feeling. That's because separation is the highest form of love. Feelings of separation are the highest form of love, are one of the highest forms of love. So naturally she's going to feel it because it's part of feeling love. You know, sometimes she feels separation when she's with Krishna because she's thinking he's going to leave. And he's still there. So these are all, as we were saying, these are all stimuluses for emotional experience. And so it's all about, in rasa, it's all about stimuluses, what will stimulate more love. And one of the things that we hear is that the love of Radha and Krishna is always increasing, always expanding. So there's got to be impetus for it to always increase and expand. So these are some examples of how it increases and expands. That's the nature, the dynamic of the spiritual. So, Katie asks, is the dharma of a king superior to dharma of a husband? It's a different dharma. It's just a different job. But in this story, yes, because there's a saying, maybe it's Chanakya Pandit, there's a saying that for the benefit of a village, if a village were to be destroyed and you could save the village by sacrificing one person. Let's say some Rakshasa, this is of course a strange example, some Rakshasa comes to a village and says, I'm hungry, I will kill all of you. And then you say, well, we'll just sacrifice one person. He said, if you sacrifice one, then I will let all others live. So sacrifice one to save the village. And then the saying goes, you can sacrifice a village, save the city or the town. Sacrifice a town to save the city, sacrifice the city, save the state, sacrifice the state to save the country. And I think it ends like saying you can sacrifice everything to save your soul. So that's the idea. It's higher principles of truth. A lot of times when we're trying to understand Krishna consciousness, and we'll see Prabhupada said different things on different occasions. And then we want to understand, well, when he's saying these things, what is the highest truth in this? He said it's okay to do this, but later on he said, don't do it. Do this. So there's a higher truth there that wasn't revealed yet. So yes, husband, dharma, he must do his dharma, but the king's dharma is to sacrifice even his own personal interest for the interest of the kingdom. It's a higher principle. So, sometimes you're in an abusive relationship and we say, well, you should never divorce, but in an abusive relationship, especially if it's sexually or physically abusive, you have to get away from it to save yourself. So then we would advise, no, get out of this relationship. This is damaging. He said, but I thought the Dharma was to stay in the relationship. Well, in this situation, this is the higher Dharma, to not subject yourself to the abuse of another person. Or that person's not qualified to be a husband or a wife. So it's a higher Dharma. I read something really interesting today, and this is a whole other topic and tangent. But it's so interesting, I want to throw it out just to spin your brain around a little bit, keep you awake and paying attention. So, in the Nectar of Devotion, I don't know if you're aware of this, probably most of you are. In the Nectar of Devotion, it says you should worship Ganesh. Vaishnavas should worship Ganesh. It's an order there. Worship Ganesh. Did you know that? It's right there. You should worship Ganesh. And then Prabhupada was asked, should we worship Ganesh? Because the devotees were doubting. And Prabhupada said, no, you shouldn't. Ganesh worships Nrsingadev. So if you want, you can pray to Ganesh to protect you from obstacles. And the only other way, and I don't know if Prabhupada was serious or not, because one devotee was giving him $100,000 checks, and he said, can I worship Ganesh for money? And Prabhupada said, only if you give $100,000 a month, I will authorize it. Because actually, Vaishnavas don't worship Ganesh. But it says that we should worship Ganesh. Isn't that interesting? So after I was reading that this morning. It just came up while I was studying something else. And I was thinking, okay, that's a nice title for a talk. Prabhupada says in his books to do something that he doesn't want us to do. That's an interesting topic, isn't it? He's saying in his books we should do something that he doesn't want us to do. Prabhupada said, if someone blasphemes the Lord and you're a Kshatriya, not a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya, you should either cut out his tongue or kill him. If you're a Brahmin, you should defeat him or leave. So let's say you actually have Kshatriya blood, you realize, or you're in a position as a Kshatriya, like you're a policeman or military man, and you hear somebody blaspheming the Lord, and you say, well, my guru said I should kill you or cut out your tongue. So which one would you like? You have your choice. Prabhupada said a sannyasi, if they fall from their position of sannyas, the proper atonement is to commit suicide. Now, do you think Prabhupada wants us to kill people who blaspheme Krishna? He wants us to defeat them or leave. Do you think Prabhupada wants his sannyasis who couldn't make it to kill themselves? Of course not. So that we have these instances where he's saying something that he doesn't want us to do. And so I was thinking about that and said, okay, this is interesting. And perhaps a little confusing. The next thing I'm saying could open up Pandora's box. But I'm thinking, okay, why, if he didn't want us to do that, why did he even put it in there? He put it in there because that's what it said in the book, and he was translating the book. He was representing what's in the Shastra. And then I thought, okay, I understand that principle. Prabhupada's representing Shastra, and time, place, circumstance, it may not be applicable to us. Then I found it. I was thinking, it's so interesting. But why didn't Prabhupada say, but as Vaishnavas, we don't follow this? Probably, most likely, because that's not what it said in the original Shastra he was translating. So he's giving us the Shastra representing it as it is. And that's the duty of the Guru, to represent Shastra. So our duty is to understand, all right, Prabhupada's saying this, but it doesn't seem consistent with other things he said. Then I have to take the liberty to question, okay, well, he said one thing, but he said another thing. What does he really want? I have to try to understand within the context of all the instructions on this topic what Prabhupada wants. So even in Prabhupada's instructions, you have some hierarchy in some sense. Not all instructions, but there's some sense of hierarchy. You want to hear something really amazing? I don't know if I told you this. This is crazy amazing. And this is, if you're confused now, you're really going to be confused. And I'll deconfuse you. That's not a word, but it works. I'll unconfuse you after I confuse you. So, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta is asked, Guru Maharaj, how many rounds should the householders chant? He said, householders should chant 64 rounds a day. Whoa. Why did he say that? Because if they don't chant 64 rounds a day, what are they going to do all day? They'll work for 6-8 hours, and then they'll have another 18 hours to just like talk Vajalpa, waste time. So his idea was, well, if you have to chant for 8 hours, it kind of eliminates time to talk Prajalpa, and after chanting for 8 hours, you probably don't want to talk anymore. So he said you should chant. They should chant 64 rounds. I don't know if you know that. It's an interesting question. Interesting statement. A lot of us don't know a lot about Gaudiya Mata and what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did. So this is interesting history. They said, Guru Maharaj, how many rounds should the brahmacharis in the temple chant? He said, rounds? They don't have to chant any rounds. They're engaged all day in Krishna service. Hare Krishna. Now you're really confused, right? Okay, I'll confuse you some more. When Bhaktisiddhanta gave initiation, first initiation, there were no vows made, and he didn't give them a spiritual name. Okay. So, well, of course, one way we can understand this is we don't have to try to understand it because Prabhupada just set out 16 rounds, 4 principles, changed our name at first initiation, solved the whole problem. But we can understand principles behind it. So the principle behind it is these brahmacharis, they're very elevated souls, and they're not, the people that came to Bhaktisiddhanta usually were coming from very high-class families and said, well, if they're engaged all day, it must mean that they're Krishna conscious. So why do they need to chant? They're already totally absorbed. For us, as coming from the West, conditioned souls, yeah, we need to chant, definitely. And then once one of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples was asked, well, how many rounds did he ask at initiation? He said he didn't ask. They didn't take vows. They just said, don't starve the mala, like chant something, don't starve it. You have to chant something. So that's interesting. So, time, place, circumstance, there may be higher dharmas, lower dharmas. And so we, in trying to understand Prabhupada's instructions, even trying to understand the instructions of your own guru, have to take into consideration who they're speaking about, what's the context in which they're speaking, what's the point they're making, and then you'll be able to understand why sometimes we give up a lower dharma for a higher dharma. The other day, I think I was mentioning that Prabhupada was told by the devotees who he asked to preach in Eastern Europe during the time of communism. He said, the devotee said, I don't think there's any vegetarian food there. We'll have to eat meat. Prabhupada said, so eat meat. Go there and preach. They said, but what about our consciousness if we eat meat? And Prabhupada said something like, damn your consciousness. So the highest principle in that scenario was to give up one of the regular principles that they vowed to give up, that Prabhupada said you must follow, never give up. And now he's telling them, give it up. Right? So that's interesting, isn't it? It's very, very interesting. One time, a woman came to ISKCON, and she said she was the daughter of Toyota, the Toyota car company, and heir to the fortune of Toyota. And one of the sannyasis, I don't know how it happened, but she became attracted to him. He became attracted to her, and he asked Prabhupada if they could get married. And she's the heir to the throne of Toyota, and Prabhupada said, okay. So I'm not exactly sure if Prabhupada did it because he thought this way she would stay in Krishna consciousness and use her influence and wealth, or that he just knew the sannyasi wanted to marry. So he did it. He considered that, at that point, a higher dharma. Sad story that later found out that she was just pretending to be Miss Toyota, and she wasn't. And she created havoc in the temple. That's a sad story. But maybe we can't ascertain exactly why Prabhupada did it. Maybe because he thought this way we can utilize her skills and talents if she actually is the heir to Toyota. Or that this sannyasi will need to get married, he's not qualified. But it became a higher principle, save somebody. That's why Prabhupada let sannyasis marry who fell down. Save them, it's a higher principle. That's why Prabhupada let some people remarry, or at least didn't interfere with them remarrying, because they needed that to maintain stability in their spiritual life, so he let them do it. Sometimes he didn't want them to do it, but sometimes he let them do it because he could see they needed to. And now here's something, I don't know if you know, okay, this is this is interesting. And I just told this to a devotee who was very, very concerned that now that we've allowed female gurus, it's just, he had a strange understanding. So I will apologize for him in advance. He had a strange understanding of that us allowing females to be gurus was kind of like opening Pandora's box for the worst of the worst in the future. And he said, so, next will be, female gurus, then it's gay marriages. I said, no, it's not like that. And then I told him something he had no idea. I said, Prabhupada had a servant who was gay, and he told Prabhupada that he can't maintain his sanity. And this devotee had a boyfriend. Or I'm not sure if he had a boyfriend. Then Prabhupada said, then get a boyfriend or live with your boyfriend. He allowed that, and that's like, oh my God, who could imagine Prabhupada would say that? But that was because he just wanted stability. In that situation, he felt, okay, this will be the best thing. He's not going to recommend that globally, universally, but for that devotee, he recommended it. Now, another story, which some of you have heard, but it's worth telling because it's so amazing and it's so funny, but it's more amazing than funny. And this story, you may hear from others, but if you hear from me, the one advantage is I was there. I saw it personally. So this takes place in 1969, Berkeley, California. So this is, like I was just thinking, there's so much information about coronavirus, and a lot of people getting on YouTube and saying, this is wrong information. This is not actually happening. Or these tests for coronavirus. These tests aren't accurate. They're not. You need a test for this specific strain, and the tests aren't necessarily finding the strain. And people who apparently get coronavirus and don't get sick actually don't have this strain of virus. They just have a cold or a flu. It's like, so I was thinking, it's hard to get facts. So here today, you're going to get the facts, at least as I saw them. And you'll say, but Prabhu, it's 50 years. How can you remember the facts? Well, at least you're getting it from somebody who was there. That's the best you can do. So it's the fall of 1969. Most of you were in other bodies at that time. Maybe you were there also in Berkeley with me. Who knows? So I'm becoming Krishna conscious. I'm becoming more attached to the process, to the devotees. I'm spending more time in the temple. So my free time, I just go to the temple because the temple was a block from the campus where I went to school. So it was very easy to go there. And there's this man, he was, I don't know, 26, 25, 27. I was 19, 20, If you're 19, you don't have friends more than 20, 21 years old. So 26 is like, that's like 6 years older than you. That's like, that person is graduated university. You're still in high school. So there's like this older guy who was 26. And he's coming, just like I'm coming, and we're hanging out in the Brahmacharya ashram. We're chanting rounds, talking to devotees, just spending time with devotees rather than just spending time alone or spending time with other people that aren't interested in Krishna consciousness. And he was getting into it, and he was really getting into it, and he was coming to the temple in a saffron dhoti, like going to become a devotee, I guess. An ashramite. That's a Anglicized Sanskrit. Ashramite. Sounds like an insect, right? There's a lot of ashramites around here, Prabhu. I think we have to exterminate them. No. So he became an ashramite. It was like he was going to move in the ashram, right? So he's coming in a dhoti, and he didn't have shaved head, short hair, and just like myself, interested, talking about Krishna with the devotees, chanting. And one day he shows up in a sari. This was Berkeley, and Berkeley was kind of a crazy place, so we could handle it because we've seen worse. But 1969, transgender was not such a public thing. And, I'm this 19-year-old, new devotee, and I see him in a sari. I'm like, okay, I've seen some weird things, I can deal with this. But that was the first man I ever saw in the sari in Krishna consciousness. And he had an identity crisis. He didn't know if he wanted to be a man or a woman. So he'd come in a sari, and he would talk in a high voice. And, it was awkward hanging out in the brahmacharya ashram in a sari. And he would chant like a voice of a woman, very high voice. And then that would last for a few days, and then he would come back in a dhoti. Okay, all right, things are getting weird. And so now you imagine you're the temple president of this temple. And you're also a new devotee, and you've never seen this. You have no idea what to do. So they wrote to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada wrote this man. I don't know his name, unfortunately. And I don't know if he's still around or she's still around. Prabhupada said something amazing, which just shows you time, place, circumstance, higher principles, lower principles. And in my experience with Prabhupada, the highest principle was always what is going to keep you in Krishna consciousness. That trumps practically every dharmic principle in the universe. That trumps it. So he writes this man, he said, this changing between man and woman, woman and man, woman, is not good. So you just need to decide if you want to be a man or you want to be a woman, and whatever you decide, just stick with that. So like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so when you analyze that, what's Prabhupada saying? It's just find a platform from which you could be steady in bhakti. It would be like saying, well, decide if you want to get married or stay single, but don't flip-flop back and forth. Don't get a girlfriend and decide you don't want to get married, and then a year later get another girlfriend. Do one or the other. That's all he's saying, is just be stable. Do one or do the other. Now, there's another one. This is not common, but I want to tell it because you're all mature adults. You can understand. This is not a common thing that Prabhupada said. This is not something Prabhupada said in his books. This is not something we should really go out and preach to the world of devotees. But I think it's important just to recognize that in this case, Prabhupada did this. So there was a man, and he was visiting a prostitute because he couldn't control himself sexually, and his wife wants to follow the regular principles. So she's not going to allow him to engage in sleeping with her. So he goes out, because he can't control himself, he goes out to a prostitute. And this came to Prabhupada, and they asked Prabhupada what to do. And Prabhupada said, he's married, right? Doesn't he have a wife? So what is Prabhupada saying? Something like that. Why is he going to prostitute? Doesn't he have a wife? And so our thought is, well, yeah, he has a wife, but 4 principles. And so, as I said, I'm not saying that we should say this to promote this idea. Go, tell all your friends, well, if you can't control yourself, it's okay. And let's, start a new cult, a sex cult in Krishna consciousness. I'm not saying it for that purpose. But in this situation, the higher principle here, Prabhupada established, was keep this within the family, don't go outside. Now, for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure, some devotees don't believe this story. The story was told by Jai Thakur Maharaj. I guess he was there involved with it. And for some reason, some devotees don't think this story means anything beyond this couple. But I would beg to differ. It's not, as I said, it's not to be universally applied, but it does show that in some situations, a principle that would help Krishna consciousness can be followed, even if it's a principle that normally harms Krishna consciousness. So sometimes something which harms your Krishna consciousness amongst certain people in a certain environment helps your Krishna consciousness. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes the bad helps you. A sannyasi can't maintain sannyas, he gets married. Sannyasis should never get married. That's obvious. But sannyasis who get married, who are still in Krishna consciousness, still chanting and serving, are doing better than the sannyasi who just ran off to the prostitute and we've never seen him again. Right? So that is the answer to Katie's question of the Dharma. Dharmas are relative according to time, place, circumstance. So, you have many comments from things I was saying a while ago. Kamania says, thank you for the concept of separation, such a digestible way. Although I can't pretend to have properly digested it, but I will meditate on it like you instructed us to. And I love that you specify that we should try to realize it through service. That makes it tangible, yes. And then you will. As Prabhupada said, I never felt separated from my spiritual master. I mean, just imagine, Prabhupada's going on a boat. It's never been done before. You can imagine how close he's feeling to Bhaktisiddhanta. Finally, it's 1923 or so, I think it was, he got this instruction. Now it's 1965, 42 years later, he's finally executing it. You can imagine how Prabhupada's feeling. It's just like, my guru is with me. He's right here. We're actually doing it. I'm doing the order of my guru. So when you fulfill the order of your guru, you fulfill the order of Prabhupada, naturally you feel close to that person. It's, when you distribute Prabhupada's books, you feel close to Prabhupada, naturally. When you take care of his temples, when you worship his, these are his deities, ultimately. You feel close to Prabhupada. When you help other people become Krishna conscious, you feel close to Prabhupada because that's what he wanted. Right? You're all exploding right now in happiness. Paran says he feels separation from me. I feel separation from your bass playing. I travel the world without you, and separation from you playing bass in my kirtan. Kamini says, whenever you speak of rasa and crying, it makes me think of the phrase, it hurts so good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's the name of your CD? Tears of Love? Isn't it? Tears of Love. So it's perfect. Or one of your songs or the CD, right? Tears of Love. Yeah. And also, sometimes we're so happy we cry. Right? So tears are interesting. Yeah. So Kamania says, this Ram Sita Leela is a transcendental roller coaster of emotions. And that's good. Place your emotions in the transcendental realm. Higher taste of rasa, Marco says. And yeah. And then too much together with one's wife is crazy. Well, it's not actually crazy for everyone. In the generation of my in-laws, they're in their 80s. We visit them and they live in a retirement community. And the husband and wives, they're together all day. It's just a different culture. And I look at them and I think, you've been married like 50 years and you're together all day. You would think you might be tired of one another. They're not. There's like, soulmates, quote unquote. Although Krishna is our only soulmate. But a different culture, different time. And they do everything together because we stay with them. We visit them, we stay with them, we see how. It's a whole day is just, if they're going to play golf, it's together. It's not like, I'm going to go play golf with my friends, you play with your friends, play tennis with my friends, your friends. They do it all together. Eat separately, the meals are together. It's interesting. It's a different culture, a different time. Katie had a different realization with her parents. She says that they'd only be together in the evenings because they worked. And when they retired, they realized they were totally different, with different goals and desires. And they never cultivated a partnership. That's a good point. So that means these other couples that in retirement are together, they cultivate a good relationship. Yeah. Is that what I wrote above? Yes. Let's read above. Was that what I read before? Yes. That quote about putting Krishna in your heart, so it's there if you want to see it. And then Kamaniya puts the quote again, so you have it twice, and then the link to the quote on the database. Yeah, beautiful quote. Diamond heart quote. Kamaniya says, I heard you can do yoga asanas in your mind and it has the same effect. Oh, wow. That's the best news I've heard all day. I can do yoga in my mind. I just sit there on my back and meditate. Okay, I'm going to try it and I'll report, see how it works. See if the pains in my body go away. Hare Krishna. Katie, is it wrong not to feel separation from Krishna? I hardly feel that because I know he's always been there for me throughout all those lifetimes, and I know he is there. The thing is, you can't feel separation until, real separation until there's love, because, the more you love someone, the more you feel separation. So in our stage, you can feel some separation, but it's not based on love. It's based on a seed of love or a seed of bhav. So you'll feel a little, and the more you advance, the more you'll feel more. Or like for me, I may be attached to some deities, and then I travel and I don't see them, and I think of them, and when I see them again, I'm so happy, and I realize, yeah, I did miss them, or I missed a devotee, or I didn't have time to read Bhagavatam, and then I get back to it, and I say, oh, I really missed it. Little things like that, that's good. So Krishna Karshani says, Gosya. I can call you Gosai instead of Gosya. Gozya. Gosai means, well, it's a male control. Goswami in Bengali is Gosai. You said, Srila Prabhupada said that separation is better, but it seems we should take advantage of presence of our gurus as often as we can, because we may regret in the future that we did not do it when the guru leaves. He won't be present. Yeah, that's true, but depends how you take advantage of that of that association, because sometimes you have to be careful. Now, what you say is true, but you have to be careful, because sometimes what happens after the guru goes, a lot of disciples, they can't make it because they become too attached to the physical presence. They didn't develop strength on their own. They didn't develop attachment to the order. They developed attachment to the physical presence. And so by his strength and presence, they were carried, and when he's gone, they're no longer carried. So you have to be careful, because that could happen. So yes, take that association, get strength, and really imbibe the instruction. So when he's no longer present, those instructions remain within you. But if you don't do that, then when he goes, you'll have a hard time. Vafal, we're glad to see you're still here. You haven't gone back to Godhead yet. That's good. Stay around. Stick with us. We'll have more classes. Hare Krishna. Ganesh came to me one day in Oman, and I asked you what to do then. What did I say? I forgot. I said, you can worship him if you send me $100,000, or you send your temple $100,000. You can pray, if you have Ganesh, pray to him to remove the obstacles. Raphael says he thought he lost some money, he prayed to Ganesh, he came back. Hare Krishna. Can it be helpful worshiping demigods, forgetting Krishna? It's not our process, but if you happen to be at a temple, a demigod temple, you can pray for their blessing to be Krishna conscious. But otherwise, it's not recommended. Prabhupada said you worship Krishna, it's like you pay the tax to the government. You don't have to pay all the government departments. Kamaniya says, perhaps what Prabhupada means by all those higher level examples of instruction that you're citing is that he's showing us the standard to aspire for, that we shouldn't take it lightly. Yes. You know, you have the standards and you have you. And we never will adjust the standards, but we may adjust ourselves because we have to take it's a long hike up a big mountain to get to the top. So we never want to say the goal is not the top. That would be a mistake. But we may want to say, well, I can't walk that fast, or, I need to rest every hour, or I need to eat every 4 hours. So we're all different. So that's okay. So we can adjust and do what's best for us as long as we acknowledge that the goal is the top. We don't change the goal. That's when you'll have a problem. So, if I say I'm not ready to do this or that, that's okay. But don't make it a standard for everyone, and don't change the philosophy and say, well, that's, a new standard. That's where you run into trouble, or the goal has been changed. And then the only other mistake we would make and say, well, I can or can't do this, and then I would always question whatever you say you can or can't do, is it actually true that you can't do this? And sometimes is it true that you can do this? Maybe you're stretching too far and you're going to fall. So stretching too far is also a problem, right? Too little, too much, and it's going to be different for different people. So we all have to see what's going to help us the most. That's the standard. Well, what's going to help you the most? What's the best for you? And so sometimes devotees say, well, I know I should do this. And I say, yeah, but doing that's not going to help you. It's not good for you. You're not able to do it. It's going to be bad for you. So that's the point. So, and sometimes it's hard to admit that, the highest standard, I can't live up to it, and I want to. And then I feel bad that I can't live up to it. Rather than feel bad that you can't live up to it, just aspire for it. And then be realistic about what you have to do now. What can I do now so that someday I can get there? And I never lose the aspiration. I just find realistically what's the best place for me now and the speed at which I can climb that mountain. I have to adapt. Otherwise, if I try too much, too hard, too fast, maybe I'll collapse on the mountain. Maybe I'll die on the mountain. It happens, doesn't it? Yeah, when people climb the Himalayas, not everyone makes it. Paran says the next Paran is Piotri Bueno. I can't pronounce it. Piotri. Yeah, that's Paran. I got to read you. If you don't have devotee name, I'm going to read your other names so we know. Do you want to follow what I'm reading? The next generation, like we will be maybe guru, or we keep standard 16 rounds, or we need rationalized, because people will not be able to chant 16. What is clear instruction for this? This is a topic, very, very important topic. Prabhupada changed things. He adjusted things. So the big question for the future, which I am not going to have to answer, but you're going to have to answer, is if Prabhupada changed something according to time, place, and circumstance, if he made an adjustment, I don't say change, Prabhupada adjusted things according to the situation. the question that you're going to have to face in the future, and this seems like a simple answer, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as you think. Do we have the right to adjust what Prabhupada adjusted? And the answer is a definite maybe. Maybe there are some things he adjusted we will continually need to adjust. That is a controversial topic. I'm not going to go there because if I do, all over Facebook, I'm going to be smashed as being too liberal. So I will just, and I'm not even making an opinion. I'm just throwing it out that that question is going to come up. Prabhupada made adjustments from things that Bhaktisiddhanta did. Do we have the right to adjust what he adjusted? And now the easy answer is no, because we're not Prabhupada. And that's the standard answer. But I believe that's going to be questioned for certain things when society changes, situations change, what worked now doesn't work, in the year 3000 or whatever. These are the questions. So if you want to be safe, the answer is no. What he adjusted, and that must stay. What he didn't adjust, you may adjust according to time, place, and circumstance. But things that he adjusted, 64 to 16, 4 principles, the way he did initiation, we can't adjust that. But that's going to come in question because people will say, well, he adjusted it for these reasons. Now, those reasons do not exist anymore. Do we have the right to readjust it? That's going to be, yeah. I was thinking of writing a book. And I won't let you release it until after I die, which would talk about all these things. But these are probably not topics that should just be given the opinion, opined by one person. It requires group discussion to look at the future of spreading Krishna consciousness. What can we adjust? What can't we adjust? This is a very sensitive issue, especially when it comes to something that seems to be a standard. Can we adjust that in light of different situations? I'm not going to go there. It's a dangerous, dark road. I would only go there if I was with like 5 God brothers discussing it because it's sensitive topic. Kripa Maharaj spoke during one of his Monday evening lectures that he met a man who decided he wants to switch his gender to become a female. He underwent all the necessary treatment and had the surgery done, just to realize some months later that he is not a woman trapped in a male body. So he wanted to have treatment and surgery to turn her body back to a male body. Yeah, I actually watched a documentary on this, and this is not uncommon. And it's the responsibility of the doctor to take more precaution. Yeah, a lot of people want to change back. Anyway, it is what it is. Yes, our second CD is called Tears of Love. And that's the title track. So there we are. Tears of Love. Separation. Zori says, we're not 80 and we're together 24/7. Yeah. So if you're together 24/7 with your husband or wife, I think it's really good because it's going to cause you to face some issues that probably you never faced, or maybe you faced them but you haven't resolved them. So it's actually good. You have to resolve issues. And I think people who are having difficulty may just have been avoiding issues now, and now's the time to talk. So, issues come up, it's good. If you're married to someone, ideally you should be able to live with them peacefully in some way or another. And not that now that everybody's home, everyone drives one another crazy. We should be able to deal with that. So Sayak says, if someone has a temporary fall down, he can come back to Krishna consciousness, but it happens again and again. It can develop as a habit, although repentance can be there in the heart. In that case, can Guru and Krishna still forgive him? This is a It depends. Depends on the person. It depends on their motive. It depends how hard they're trying. It depends what's in their heart. If in that person's heart is, I just want to be Krishna conscious, I want nothing else, and they're trying as best they can, and they're repenting and they're remorseful, and they're getting better. That's key. They're getting better. Yes, Krishna can forgive. The Guru can forgive because you're getting better. But if you're not even really trying, you're not really remorseful, and you're just giving in to your own passions, then you don't deserve it because you're not trying to heal yourself. So if you're trying, yes, that's what Bhagavad Gita 9:30 says, and all the commentaries, and 11th canto Bhagavatam says the same thing. But it really depends on you. And what I've seen, I've had some godbrothers who've hit some hard times, as Bob Dylan said, a hard rain's going to fall. I've seen godbrothers that have hit some amazingly hard times. And they just kept going. And at one point they just came, I see them and they're like living in Vrindavan wearing saffron and totally blissful and ecstatic. I'm like, wow, amazing. You don't give up. Krishna will help you. Mokshaja says, if we change them to do the things Srila Prabhupada wanted, now I forget the context. I forget the context of that. You have to remind me. Can GBC make specially document that any next generation do not change standards of Srila Prabhupada? That's a good idea. I'm going to write that down. That's a really good idea. Because I have some service that I can influence the GBC. Make a document what standards can never be changed. That would be interesting because even with that document, someone's going to want to change them in the future. But anyway, we'll see. Wow, it's late. Again, we went overtime. So some good points were being made. I hope that helps you. And we will see you tomorrow morning. And then we'll go back. There's some more things to read on our topic about leaving the body. And then when we finish that, we'll figure out where we go from there. We'll pick another topic. And we are, oh yes, today's Saturday. Every Saturday at 5 o'clock, we have a class on Facebook. And this class is specifically, you can all join. It's specifically at this time for Australia, because it's 8 a.m. in Australia. And so, yeah. It's 8 a.m. on Sunday morning in Australia. So you can make a note of that every Saturday 5, and then I will tell Krishna Priya to notify everyone. And the topic of that class, I'm not sure. I have to ask Sundari Radha what she wants me to talk about.